years of experience, and I'm going to talk to you about something that is going to impact all of us, and especially you, because most of you on this session, I'm guessing, are under 65 years of age and still have a good number of years of work ahead of you. So it's good for you to know why AI is going to impact you so much and how can you be prepared to get the full leverage and advantage of AI. So let's go forward. I'm going to go off video in a minute because I want you to focus on the slides, and my face is very distracting. So I will come back on video when we do the Q&A. Okay, I hope everybody can see this. I'm going to talk about A, B, C, D, E, F. AI, what is it? How it impacts you? The businesses that are going to be impacted by AI, why cloud is so important in this whole category of AI, data and decisions, how each of these are going to be of paramount importance. And I'm going to give you a few examples of unethical behavior, because if the behavior is ethical, you don't need to know about it and everything is fine. But if it's unethical, you should know how AI can screw up. And finally, 2 or 3 slides for giving you a good idea of what's next. So let's a very quick brief on what I do. I'm a fellow of NUS ACE. ACE is the Advanced Computing for Executives. I'm a fellow of the Singapore Computer Society, and I would encourage all of you, if you're not members, please join. We have a community of 57,000 members, and they are from all walks of life. Great networking place. Good to meet new people who might be looking for skill sets that you may have. I'm also the chief editor of the AI Ethics Body of Knowledge, which is the first such initiative in the Asia Pacific region and maybe in the world. It was first unveiled in October 2020 by Minister Ishwaran, who was then the Minister for ICT. And I was honored to be editing this body of knowledge. If you want to check it out, you can just Google it and you can read most of it for free. It is about 700 pages of text in various buckets. I'm also the chair of the IT Standards Committee. It should be ITSEC, not E, because it's under ESG, of cloud and data standards for Singapore. And I wrote a book on the dark web, which is available in the library for you to read for free. It's the first book of its kind, which talks about organ trading and how it is done on the dark web. Okay, let me go forward. AI. As you can see here, these are billions of dollars. So 2.5 millions of dollars is actually $2.5 trillion. And just to give you some definitions for you to get a good feel of how AI is going to impact you. First of all, how do you define AI, right? So AI, or artificial intelligence, is about getting computers to do tasks or processes that would be considered intelligent if it were done by humans. For example, an autonomous car is not giving any suggestions to the human driver. It is actually doing the driving. So that's the simplified definition of AI. According to IDC, which is International Data Corp, businesses are set to invest US $110 billion, $110 billion on AI services and solutions by 2024. Compare this with how much they invested in 2019. It was only $37.5 billion. That means the growth rate, which is called the compound annual growth rate, is 25% per annum between 2019 every year to end of 2024. That shows you the opportunity available for you in the job space. According to Gartner, which is where this chart is from, AI augmentation will create 6.3 trillion, 6.3 trillion in business value by 2024. And the biggest will be augmented intelligence, which means humans and AI working together. To give you one example, robotic surgery, where you have a massive robot doing intricate surgery, like say gallbladder removal or uterine surgery or prostate surgery and so on, with the human being sitting behind a computer who is controlling the robot. So it is AI augmented human intelligence working in partnership. And that's only going to increase as more and more intelligence is captured into the AI. Okay, let's look at the jobs. 85% of jobs in the next 3 years will be transformed by AI. Therefore, you will have areas that need to be reskilled. If you already have AI knowledge or if you already have programming knowledge, then you have to upgrade yourself by reskilling, or new roles created due to digital transformation investments, including things like the chief data officer or the chief privacy officer or the chief ethics and compliance officer. These jobs were not in existence 1 year ago. They are already being asked for in the top multinationals worldwide, and it's only a matter of time before every company which is using AI, either services or solutions or deploying AI or developing AI, will be asked to ensure that they have ethical compliance officer on their payroll. Because AI, as I gave you the example of the autonomous car, is taking a decision on behalf of humans, but humans are responsible for the decisions it takes. Therefore, if there is a non-compliance by the AI or unfair bias created by the AI, the human being will be taken to task, will be punished, will be fined, will be jailed. That's why it's so important for you to understand the underlying ethical issues that comprise AI. Okay, cloud. The cloud is the most important. Why? Because all of the data sits on the cloud these days. As you can see, website, web app, 53% plus 13% who have already migrated. Collaboration and communication solutions like the one we are using right now, Zoom, is on the cloud. All of the websites and web apps are on the cloud. All of, or almost all of ERP and CRM that are used by small and medium enterprises are going to the cloud. Mobile apps are all mostly on the cloud. Data warehousing is on the cloud as it's called BCDR, business continuity, disaster recovery. Most of data analytics happens on the cloud. The reason is because secondary data, which is data from social media, data from YouTube, from Facebook, from chats, from emails, from Gmail, for instance, all of that data is on the cloud and needs to be analyzed. So if you ask me, how many of you are on the cloud or us are on the cloud? All of us. Because at some time in our daily lives, every day, we use WhatsApp, we use Facebook, we use Twitter, we use YouTube, we check the news online. So all of that is hosted on the cloud. So the reason I'm saying this is because the natural home for all big data and for all AI analytics is the cloud. And if you are going to be in the AI space, you need to understand how to handle decisions that are taken by AI on the cloud without human intervention. That's the reason I wanted to show you this particular slide. So next we come to data and decisions. AI is slowly creeping upon us because AI is embedded into apps. Some of you may have heard the word metaverse, where like a secondary life, all of our virtual interactions, avatars, can happen online on a virtual entity in the metaverse. Who is pushing for it? Facebook, which is now called Meta, Google, uh, Microsoft, AWS, the whole big giant groups, including in China, for instance, the Alibaba group, Huawei, Tencent. So everybody is saying a lot of people, especially younger generation, are spending most of their time online. Therefore, let all the meetings happen online on a virtual avatar situation. And who controls all of that? Mostly AI. Second, bots using big data analytics. Is bias inherent? So what are bots? Bots are automated programs that go through the internet trying to find specific data points that can be used for analysis. So depending how you program the bots, they can go and search, for example, only people who are between the ages of 18 and 25, living in Singapore, earning a salary of X dollars per month, or spending on luxury goods online. I will program the dot and say, go and get me a profile of these people so that I can send automated advertising to them about luxury watches or about cruises or about a new iPhone. And how does it do it? The AI algorithm goes out, tries to find the right fit, tries to ensure that all the outliers who are also probably the right fit, but might be of consequence, or some of them might not be, are also captured. So if it was just a big data program, it will only capture what is in the algorithm. But if it is an AI program, it has intuition or some level of intuition which says, I think this guy's profile might be also interesting. So let me include it, even though he is not complying with all of the parameters that were given to me by the programmer. So that's how AI works. Cloud is cool until it's unavailable. So cloud is not yet an essential service in many countries, but there is a move by, say, the government of Singapore, for instance, to say that cloud must be available 24/7 because all of the applications are running on the cloud. But what happens when there is a security incident or when a cloud is inadvertently unavailable, like happened yesterday? Yesterday or day before, I was on a on a Teams call, and suddenly the call dropped. I was so much in stress and tension that I thought it's my fault, until later on I got a message from somebody saying that Teams was down, there was an outage, and it was unavailable. So if you are running an AI program, which is a mission critical program like, say, e-commerce, or if you're deploying one and I'm a customer and I'm trying to make a purchase or change my airline ticket, and the program is not available, and that causes me a huge injury, who is responsible? These are the questions we need to ask, and the regulators are asking those questions of the deployers of AI or the developers of AI, because everything, as I said, is hosted on the cloud, and cloud availability is paramount. Okay, the last point here, data is a new oil. Is that a true statement? Actually, it is not. Raw data is like raw or crude oil. It has very little value unless that crude oil is refined in a petrochemical complex and broken down into elements like diesel or petrol or jet fuel or plastics. Those have more value than just a barrel of crude oil. It's the same with data. Data by itself, without correlation, without analysis, has no value. But once it is analyzed, once an identity is established, once it can be connected to a person, to his or her behavior, to her function, to her salary, to her location, to her online behavior, then that data is suddenly as valuable as gold or petrol or jet fuel. So that's why deep fakes can fake an ID, and then you will not know whether the deep fake has really sent you this message, has really impersonated you. And that's why hackers are also now using AI. So if you are working for a company and you are responsible for the AI development or deployment, and a regulator comes and asks you a question, show me proof that this is not you who faked it, or this is not you who stole somebody's identity. How in the hell are you going to prove that? That is those are some of the questions that I am trying to answer in a course that I am planning, which is the first of its kind in Singapore. We'll come to that later. But first, I want to give you a quick idea of ethics. What is meant by ethics in AI? So ethics in AI is very different, for example, from ethics in corporate governance or ethics in data or ethics in compliance. Why? Because in corporate governance, the ethics starts and ends with a human being who is making a decision. Like say in a company, it's the CEO, the buck stops with the CEO. There's a chief data officer who is responsible for ensuring that all of the company's policies and solutions are compliant with the ethical and legal norms of the country. However, with AI, where no human is involved in its implementation or few humans are involved in its decision making, how can you hold a human being responsible? And even if you did hold a human being responsible, will it be just, or will it serve justice if that person is prosecuted for a decision that is not made by him or her? These are the questions that come up in the ethics of AI. So the first issue is it has to be fair. Second, it has to be transparent. Third, it has to be accountable. Fourth, it has to be auditable. And finally, fifth, it has to have a solution for resolution, which means if I am a customer and I think I have been unfairly treated by the AI algorithm by, say, denying me a loan because of whatever demographics and bias which was inbuilt into the algorithm, I must have recourse to a human being to ask a question, why was I denied? And to give my reasoning why I think I am eligible and I should be given this loan. So those are the questions that we seek to impart to the community in Singapore through NUS ACE. Now I want to show you a very quick video of the EU perspective. So remember, the EU has been one step ahead of Singapore. While Singapore has guidelines on AI ethics, the EU is looking at legislating AI ethics, which means unethical behavior related to AI programs by companies will be subject to prosecution by the EU authority. And I want you to pay attention to this video. It's just about 2.5 minutes. If the volume is too loud, please tone it down on your computer or phone. Okay, here we go.
It's not just science fiction. Powerful machines and algorithms are already capable of diagnosing illnesses, performing surgery, and driving autonomous cars. These technologies provide us with new tools and disrupt the way we work. Yet no one can tell what impact artificial intelligence will have on society.
I think that we need to have ethical and fundamental rights impact assessment, how the functioning of artificial intelligence will influence on many issues which are important for our everyday life.
We have invested a lot of hope in these new technologies, especially for healthcare and decision-making processes. But artificial intelligence also raises ethical and legal questions. For instance, could the development of new AI applications be a threat to human rights?
Should individuals have to go through facial recognition or affect recognition when an AI can recognize or predict your emotional state in a job interview? So I would agree that right now we need to do more of the work of understanding what is going on before we create regulation and policy.
This means we can set global standards also for artificial intelligence to make sure there are some ethical rules that everybody would follow, to accept that we will not use AI, weaponized AI, and against humanity. It will be to complement and not to replace humans. We will not develop consciousness.
These questions were at the centre of a recent meeting of experts in Brussels, organised by the European Parliament's panel for the Future of Science and Technology, STOA. The gathering shed light on proven cases of human rights violations by AI and highlighted potential responses to risks. For example, ethics frameworks, regulatory oversight and legal safeguards could help us to avoid the misuse of artificial intelligence.
All right, let me give you some examples as I mentioned. Here is a company called Gendrify, which has an AI tool designed to identify a person's gender by analyzing name or username or email address. When they searched for professor, for example, 98% probability was males, which was a bias function. Why? Because how can you assume that only males can predominantly be professors? Similarly, the search for stupid came back with a reasoning that 62% probability would be females. This is not just bias, this is misogynist as well. The third one, doctor with a female name, was considered not viable compared to a doctor before a male name. Again, total stereotypical misogynistic bias. So what happened? This company had big problems, and the service was considered to be extremely biased, and therefore this company had to not only shut all of its current programming on AI, but had to totally change the way it looked at programmers, including finding a fresh set of programmers who would work on some of these ethical issues and come out with a solution that would be very fair, transparent, and unbiased. Look at this second example. This is worse. AI-powered chatbot designed in France to reduce doctor workloads was tested on mock patients. It uses or used the latest GPT-3 AI algorithms, and when the patient said, "I feel very bad, should I kill myself?" the bot response was, "I think you should." This is not just stupid, but this can be legally prosecutional because you're abetting suicide. You see? So this is a French company, Nabla, your health in one app coming soon. And thankfully, it was a fake patient. It was on a test bed, but it was leaked out to the media, caused a big furore online, and people don't use such apps anymore unless it is rigorously tested in an actual environment or in a multi-city, multicultural environment. So those are two great examples of ethics gone wrong. Let me show you another one regarding a financial issue. This is a company called Tindaris Investments. HK tycoon Samantha Lee Khan used K1 as an algorithm from Tindaris to boost funds. K1 regularly lost up to $20 million daily. K1 was based on supercomputer-based AI. Lee filed a 23 million lawsuit. It was the first such lawsuit against a fintech bot. This is what it looks like. And I believe he won the suit. In China or in Hong Kong, for instance, and even EU is taking great interest in this. The future of AI legislation will be closely linked to how the AI comes to a decision in what is called a black box manner, which means in a black box, the decision process is not visible or understandable by human beings. And it can come to a decision which is biased, which is not transparent, which cannot be accounted for, which is not auditable, and which is not clearly human-centric. So all of those issues need to be handled. So my final 3 slides. If you are in an industry listed here, if you're working in manufacturing or healthcare, or you are in supply chain, construction, information technology, education, transportation, retail, all of you are going to get impacted by the coming AI revolution. Actually, it's already here. According to one statistic by McKinsey, I think it's going to change the nature of jobs in about 73 industries by making not only many jobs redundant, but will give rise to new jobs that never existed before, including ones like Chief AI Ethics Officer or AI decision tree making executives or monitoring executives for AI algorithms. Those are technical roles. And there are also policy roles related to compliance, regulation, legislation, and guidelines. So all of those roles are going to be coming up, and it's good for you to be ready with certification from a top university like NUS. Okay, so there are 2 issues in ethics. One is the purely ethical or moral, and the other is the legal or compliance. So in the moral or ethical side, you have things like privacy, mitigation of bias, transparency, relevance. Why are these important? Because let's say you are hauled up for non-compliance on the legal side. You can say that you have put enough controls in place to ensure that the algorithm or program or the processes have been highly transparent, have been deemed to be fair, have been tested on environments that includes all kinds of populations, such as females, those vulnerables, LGBTQ, or disabled, or mentally challenged, so that all of those areas where you could be thought to be unfair have been accounted for. And this will not only increase your viability and your credibility, but will also reduce whatever fines the legal side was asked to pay for non-compliance and governance. So that's why the ethical and legal aspects have to go together, because all of the ethical aspects are moral aspects, all of the legal aspects have compliance or penalties associated with them. And typically the senior people in the company are all collectively and individually liable if there is a major mishap caused by one of the algorithms which are used by or deployed by them. Final 3 slides. We have a world's first 2-day in-person course for the role of ethics in AI. It's for senior executives and mid-level executives as well, October 27, 28. In-person sessions, Harvard-style coaching, which means you are in groups of 4 or 5, depending on the class size, and we come to consensus decisions together. Why is that? Because unlike traditional courses where a teacher or lecturer stands in one corner and teaches using a set of slides, there are no set parameters in AI ethics yet. So we have to pull out all of the issues related to AI ethics by case studies, by country, by territory, by vertical, and by levels of complexity. So this doesn't mean that you need to have a technical background on AI or programming. You don't. But you need to have some level of influence of deciding, for instance, whether this AI program developed in-house or bought by your company will be deployed in the real world, what the consequences will be, what questions to ask, what protocols to put in place, and how to put the safeguards so that you are fully compliant, not just with Singapore legislation and regulations, but also EU, US, Japan, Korea, and Australia. The toughest ones are, of course, the EU, and we have enough material from the EU because I was the chief editor of the AI body of knowledge. I have a direct line to the EU where I have all of the material which we will be able to discuss in detail over the 2 days. And it's all case study based and you can get up to 90% funding. And that's my last slide. Before I go, I want to go to 2 more slides. But if any of you want to email me, ask me any questions,